On the last episode, I towed this car to the dealership to code the immobilizer. But on this episode, I find out my problems are a lot worse than that. On the last episode, we started going through the wiring on the car. It proved to be quite a mess, and after figuring out everything was plugged in where it was supposed to be, I didn't know what else to do. The engine wasn't cranking over. I decided to do a little research and found the person that owned the car before the previous owner. He was very friendly and offered to talk on the phone to give me some information.
Yeah. I'm talking everything was just... This car apparently was sitting in deep water for a long time. I loved that car, and I really wanted that car to evolve into something better, but unfortunately, sorry to hear what happened. Alright, have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. There are some really, really good people in this world. The car had significant water damage, which is never something you want to hear about your car. To most people, that means the car is dead beyond recovery. But to the previous owner of the car, that meant a cheap shell to buy. He had always planned to strip the car down completely to start with a bare shell, and it appears that's what he did, and that explains why the dashboard was replaced along with a lot of the wiring underneath. So most of the plugs and the wires in the entire car were replaced by the previous owner after the water damage, but I was still nervous that this might be the reason for the no start, so I called my much smarter friend Adam over to help me trace down some of these wires.
That's my coil. There, because we have no ground. Very hard to see from over there. The grounds were never attached to the engine, so that being said,
They were attached to each other.
that is why the ECU doesn't get ground.
After we found the two detached ground wires, we quickly grounded them to the engine and powered up the ECU. The fuel pump still wasn't powering on, but the alarm had stopped going off, so we tried to crank the engine over and see if it would move.
Okay, go for it.
Whoa! Starter works. All right.
To deal with your fuel pump, make sure your fuel pump's connected to this point.
All right, so we chased the culprit down using the wiring diagram and found that there were two ground leads not connected to the engine block. So we got this connected up now, and the engine actually cranks over, which is fantastic. But now the fuel pump is not coming on, and the gauge cluster still doesn't see the ECU. So there's still a couple things that we need to chase down. And in order to do that, we're gonna have to use the wiring diagram and kind of follow upstream to find out where the issue is and where maybe there's a loose ground or maybe there's a plug not connected. I'm not the best at this, but I'm gonna try my best to walk you guys through kind of the process of doing that, and you can kind of figure it out as I figure it out, because I'm gonna mess up a lot. The first step is to find out if there actually is a fuel pump in the car. Once we find out that there's a fuel pump in there, then we can start tracing down some of the wires and see why it's not getting any power. But first, we have to see if there actually is a fuel pump in there. Moment of truth, is there a fuel pump? Feels like there is, it's heavy. It's not good because that means the fuel is old. Don't spill, stop it. Stop doing that. Hey, guess what? The tank is completely full. The tank is full all the way to the top of 3-year-old gas that I now have to drain. So this is the basket. The fuel pump is inside. Maybe is in, stop it. I think there is a fuel pump in there. All right, sure enough, there was an upgraded fuel pump in the fuel tank, which means now I need to start tracing out some of the wiring diagrams and figure out why it wasn't cutting on. I started by seeing if the fuel pump was getting any electrical signal or power from the ECU. Okay, so this is a basic test light. I've got one end grounded to the door there, and then the other end I'm gonna probe these, and if the light turns on, that means there's power in one of these. So I'm gonna do that and find which one has power. And of course, none of the 6 pins were getting any power. So then I worked my way up to the ECU and found 2 pins that supply power to the fuel pump. So I back probed those and didn't find any electrical current either. Ow! Da! Hoo! Ha! Huh! E! Dang it! Screwdriver went right between my fingers. Ah! I'm not even doing anything interesting. I'm trying to unplug. Dang it! I don't know how this works. I'm not getting anything. I had no idea what I was doing. I called Adam back up and asked him to come over and help me out again. In the meantime, I'm going to get started on some projects that need to be done to the car that I actually know how to fix. Alright, so now we're going to bleed the brakes, and basically what that is getting all the air out of the brake lines. Because air is condensable, it makes the brakes really squishy or sometimes not even work. And when I towed the car to the dealership, it was really sketchy getting it off the trailer. So let's get all the air out of the brake lines so it's less sketchy. And hopefully it's not like a bad master cylinder or bad brake calipers or something like that. But yeah, let's go ahead and bleed brakes. Screw, bleed screw. These two are supposed to be connected, but this one's leaking. Well, this one here is leaking. Let's leave it there. So let me see if that'll tighten down any. Yep, it just wasn't all the way tight. I love when problems are that simple. It's got super blue brake fluid, which is illegal now. Fun fact. The brake fluid is actually blue, and it's illegal because apparently brake fluid is supposed to be yellow, and then if it's blue, like in a car accident, it's hard for them to identify or something. I don't know. Rumors, you know how they go. So I bled all 4 brakes, starting from the back and working my way to the front. I also bled the clutch slave cylinder as the clutch pedal was stuck depressed. Figured this was something I would need to do eventually, so I might as well do it now. While I was bleeding all the fluids, I found an issue with the steering column. So the steering column is loose. I can't figure out why. It's bolted down underneath there. So I'm going to get underneath the car and see if there's anything loose on the steering rack or something. I'm not really sure. It might be missing a plate or something. Alright, so this is where the steering column comes out. There's like a little spacer here, but you'll notice that moves a good amount. I don't think that's supposed to move at all. It's fixed down here. Looks like he's got an extra brace here for the steering rack, which is really cool because the Subaru steering racks are pretty junk. But so that's good that that's braced in, but I can't quite figure out why this is loose like that. So I'm gonna have to look up online and see if there's supposed to be something up there. Oh. On what I checked, there is actually a bushing there. It's just stuck on this side. So let me see if I can push it up. There was a gasket there and I had to fight it for like an hour, but I think it's in now. It's like this little rubber gasket. I don't know if this is this hard for other people. Maybe I'm just an idiot, but like that was freaking a wrestling match to get that thing back in. But hopefully it stays in now. The last thing to do is to remove the fuel from the fuel tank. And since I've already removed the fuel pump, it should be very easy to siphon it out of the top. But it looks like most of it's evaporated. That gas tank does not look the cleanest. But yeah, we're going to siphon that out and then see if I can take a rag to that gas tank and see if I can clean it up a little bit. Alright, so I've drained all of the gas out of this tank here, and it's nice and shiny down there in the bottom of the tank. Now, the problem is I found that there's another spot over there that there's like another way to get to gas tank here. This gas tank is like a double bubble, so they've got like a hump for the drive shaft, I guess. So I've drained half of the fuel tank, not the full thing. I didn't realize that. You can drain the fuel tank from the bottom. So basically taking this panel off here, bolt right here, and you can loosen that bolt, and it'll drain all the gas, at least up to that level. There's like a little bit below that that's going to stay in there. So that is the fuel that came out of the right side. Jeez, that looks like maybe like 3 gallons. I feel like it's going to bother people that I didn't do 5 gallons exactly. Now that there's fresh gas in the tank, I knew the car would actually fire if we got to the point where we could actually do that. So Adam was now free and he came by for hopefully the last time to figure out this wiring issue and figure out what needs to be done to get this car to start. My favorite person is back.
And 3C provides ground, so this should be a ground, this would be a positive.
And this is what we found so far. This is the fuel pump relay. You can see the kind of green around the plugs there. That is from the water damage that the car had. The fuel pump relay had tons of corrosion on it. So we submerged it in Coke to hopefully get the corrosion off and scraped away as much as we could. But it didn't seem to make a difference. So we took the relay from the headlights and put that where the fuel pump relay is supposed to be. We spent hours tracing this down to figure out if this was the culprit. And as you can imagine, I didn't film much because, well, let's face it, going through wiring diagrams just isn't that interesting. But after we replaced the fuel pump relay, we had high hopes that the engine would actually fire this time. Does not sound good, but it runs. It's bittersweet because that did not sound good, but the engine finally runs. We figured out all the wiring issues and got the car to start. Well, by we I mean Adam. And in my opinion, that's the hard part. So now I get to go through the mechanical aspects of the car and figure out why the engine's rattling. But that's no small feat, so we'll have that in next episode. Hey guys, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to check us out on Instagram because we post more up-to-date updates on there, and sometimes we ask you guys for some help because, well, you know I need it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.